What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Custom Knife Factory Satori 2.0. And as the name implies, the Satori 2.0 is the second version of the Satori by Peter Recenti. By the time I got into the knife hobby, the 1.0, the drop and the production for it had already ended. So you can find them, but they're rare and they're expensive on the secondary market, so I've never been able to get one. But when this 2.0 came along, I managed to get one in one of the drops, and I'm actually very glad that I did get the 2.0 as opposed to the 1.0, because the 2.0 it's a smaller version of the knife, and even though it's a smaller version of the knife, it lands right in my sweet spot of size. So let me give you a tour of the knife and we can get started. So what you have here is an M390 blade, as you can see right there. And I'll show you the size here. About 3¼ inches measured from right there, from right here. And 3¼ inches is my ideal blade size. Is if I could have all of my folding knives at 3¼ inches, that's what I would have. So what you have here is it's a blade that has a slight recurve down here, okay? So, and it could almost be considered a flat, but it's not really flat. It has the slightest of recurves this way, and then a very large, I don't know what you call this, that tanto tip, but it's just very large. I mean, it's about 50% of the cutting edge is in this kind of bellied tip that you have here. It is hollow ground. Let me see if I can get that for you. Yeah, there you go. There's the hollow. It's hollow grind, and I like a lot when the way they do this hollow grind. You got a fuller that runs right here, and a swedge that starts all the way back here, and it intersects everything in the knife. It intersects the thumb rest right here with the jimping, this ramp that it has right here, the fuller, everything, and it just looks really attractive. So, you know, like a blade just cut, you know, all the top part of the knife. I like that a lot. You've got external stop pins right here on both sides. You've got a titanium frame lock, and it has, so this is a black wash, but it has like it's not gray and black, it almost looks more bronze and black. I don't know if that comes across in the camera. You have their number, this is number 24, so I like that. You got Peter Recenti's mark. This one has an over travel stop and a lock bar insert, but it's crazy the way they've machined this, because this is the steel part, that's the titanium part. Let me see if I can get you close to that. Yeah. And you see it's two pieces, but man, it's just so precisely done that you can't even feel the intersection of those two things. You got a milled pocket clip here, and perhaps more importantly, it is an integral knife, which means that you don't have two scales separated by a backspacer or by standoffs. You have this handle, these scales have been milled from a single bar of titanium. And you know, I have the Snafu 3.0, and that's kind of the same deal with the Snafu. You have the same idea of an integral design. You do have lanyard holes right here in case you want to do a lanyard, and you have a pretty good size sharpening choil without it being a finger choil. Now, when I say that this is my ideal size knife, I always mean my ideal size knife fits right between those two. Okay, so that's the size comparison with the Para 2 and the Para 3. And my ideal size knife falls right in between those two, and that's what this one does. It has a sharpened blade length very similar to the Para 2, you know, even though it's really a different blade. you know, but more of a handle length of a para 3. So what you get is, you can see the difference right there. So what you get is a lot of blade and not a lot of handle, and so it's a very nice, it's a very nice size for me. Let me show you the thickness. It's not thick, it's a fairly thin knife. So there you go. So it is thinner than the para 2, and the blade stock, as you can see, it's also thinner than the para 2. Let me give you the size comparisons with the bug outs. This is the mini bug out, and this is the full-size bug out. And remarkably, it's a little bit bigger than the bug out, obviously, but in carry, it's like this magic voodoo, because in carry it feels a lot like the bug out. In the carry profile, it's not dramatically different from what you get in a bug out there. It's a little bit taller, it's a little bit longer, but it feels very much like that in the pocket. Now, thickness of the blade, as you can see, I can insert it here, so it's very similar to the blade stock of the bug out, of the full-size bug out. So let's get started with our analysis of this. And let's start with ergonomics. And the ergonomics on this are phenomenal. They are so very good, which is strange. You know, some knives, you know, you can see that they're going to be ergonomic, some not. This has the picture of a knife that's not going to be ergonomic, and especially because there's no contouring in this direction. You have a little bit of a ramp, but it's a ramp in this direction towards you in the screen. Let me see if I can show you that way. So it's a curve like this. It has like this ridge at this point. But there's no contouring. There's obviously a rounding at the edges, but it is for the most part a flat. But it feels your hand. It lands on your hand so nicely. You have a finger groove in the front. It feels really nice in the hand. The jimping is perfectly done. It's not aggressive, but it is effective. You won't feel like you're slipping off of the knife. So in a saber grip, very nice. In a hammer grip, very nice. You do feel the pocket clip. Because it's a smaller handle, the pocket clip doesn't go here. You know, the knife, it wants to be held over here, and you feel the pocket clip right here in the ball of your hand, if you will. So you do feel it, but it's fairly minimal. So I wouldn't consider it a hot spot, but you do feel that it is there. You know, so ergonomics, very good. I would put it like probably in the neighborhood of the para 2 for ergonomics. Probably the only thing is it's a thinner knife, but it's weird, right? Because look at that, the blade, it's so big or so tall that it feels like there's no way that you can hide this blade inside of this handle, right? But then it just goes in, and there it is. It's gone. Voila! It's crazy. Ergonomics, really good. Now cutting is excellent with this knife. There's two things that it has going for it. It has a blade stock that's very thin. You know, kind of in the neighborhood of the bug out. So it's a thin blade to start, and it's a thin blade that has been hollow ground to here. So man, it comes down to a really thin edge. So cutting with it, and really recurves, they cut really well. You know, slicing through cardboard is just awesome with this. I don't enjoy sharpening recurves. I don't, you know, I've tried a couple of times, especially recurve compounds, because getting that point correctly, it takes much more skill than what I have. So it cuts incredibly well, and that point is really helpful for opening packages. That tip just drops right in, and then you just draw the cut. Utility cuts, all of that point is very useful. I think the blade shape is, you know, I don't use the push blade for this size for this side. I think I end up using only this side, so there's a lot of blade that I don't use. man, it just looks so awesome that I don't even mind it all that much, that you have so much blade that I don't, you know, you can use for like scraping cuts or something like that, but I don't use that kind of cutting in my life, in my usage of a knife. So I would say that the cutting is outstanding. The hollow grind comes down to a ridiculously thin edge, and the blade stock is very, very thin, which makes this a very, very thin knife, because it has an integral construction and a thin blade attached to it. The action, it's a little bit strange. You have to get used to holding it, because one of the problems that I see is that the pocket clip lands on the lock bar. So depending on where you put your fingers, you know, you can deploy it very nicely, or you can just, you know, if you're touching the lock bar, or if you're putting a lot of pressure on the pocket clip, it's very difficult to deploy. So it's one of those knives. I had this happen with my Shirogorov Kami, where if you hold it in the right way, the action is awesome, but you have to hold it in the right way. And I find myself that if I haven't carried it in a little while, I've kind of forgotten how to hold it, and because I've forgotten how to hold it, I usually miss on my first couple of deployments. Now, closing is my ideal closing action. It is just this dampened, slow, controlled drop that is so smooth. It runs on bearings. See, I missed a couple of times. I misfired a couple of times. So the action is very smooth. The closing action is phenomenal. But deploying it takes a little bit of a conscious effort of determining where your fingers land, and that's not ideal. I generally don't like to think about, you know, where I'm putting my fingers. You know, if I'm fidgeting with it, you know, it's more of a mindless act that to fidget with it. So it's a little bit strange that you have this happening. I would say that the closing action is phenomenal, and the deployment action is outstanding if you put your fingers in the right location. But if you do not, then the action is non-existent, because you can't deploy the damn knife. So there you have it. Fit and finish, man. Like I've always said, Custom Knife Factory is impressive in that, you know, a company like Spyderco, right? They've done 6 billion paratooths, right? So they perfected their process of everything in this knife to be just perfect, right? Or to be as perfect as they want to make it. They've had many chances and many iterations to fix any problems or issues that they may have had on any of them, right? Benchmade makes millions of bug outs, right? Not the case with Custom Knife Factory. Custom Knife Factory does a batch of these, and I don't know how many they made. Let's call it 300, and then they move on to a different designer that has different action, a different blade, it's not an integral, or, you know, it's a titanium frame lock or a liner lock or something or other. You know, it might be a front flipper like the 5th, and it's impressive the level of quality that they can achieve without the level of repetition and the getting better over time that you get from some of these. You know, I think, you know, they don't get a chance to make 3,000 of these, right? They make whatever, 200, 500 of these, and then they're done, and then they do something else. So the fact that they can put out this level of quality, and I would say this level of quality, it's, you know, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a Grimsmo Norseman, thereabouts, right? They're in the neighborhood of Herm Knives. I would still put Shirogorov right a little bit above them, but I think that that's only the case because Shirogorov has this advantage, right? The advantage of doing the F3NS over and over and over again. I believe that if Custom Knife Factory had a knife that they made over and over and over again, I think they would achieve Shirogorov level quality. I think they're just a smidge below that. You know, the level of detailing that you get here. I mean, look at these grind lines. The grind lines, you know, from the hollow to the tip to the swedge, and having those two be perfectly symmetrical on both sides. You know, the integral construction, the lock bar insert that is just flawlessly transitioning from the steel to the titanium, the stone washing on this thing, you know, that everything is rounded and chamfered, you know, and I think the problem of the action is more of a problem of design more than it is a problem of manufacturing. So I would say, you know, fit and finish is outstanding. It's right up there with the, you know, with the highest levels. You know, I think it probably has a better quality than a Chris Reeve knife, a better fit and finish than a Chris Reeve knife. You're talking really, really, really high-end fit and finish on this knife. Now, airing of grievances, I've talked about it a little bit. I think the action, the fact that you have to think about it, it's kind of my biggest one. It seems like an easy fix to just go and move this over here and have, you know, such that you have your fingers, you know, land where they will, and have a nice deployment action. I don't like, you know, when they do this slide of a recurve. I think it cuts incredibly well, but I think, you know, I don't think it would detract from the design if they just went with a straight line from here to here. They just did a straight line. You know, instead of having this is kind of like the smallest of all. Look, I will try and put a straight edge here. That's the slightest of all recurves on history, right? And so I don't think it cuts really well, but I don't think it gets the advantage of the recurve all that much. So if you're not going to get the advantage, I don't think it would detract from the aesthetics of the knife to go straight from here to here, and then you have a little bit of belly up here. That's what I would have done, but I can't argue that it looks like a badass knife. It just looks like a tremendous knife. You know, the aesthetics of it it's one of the coolest looking knives in my collection, and that's just how it goes. I do think that the action on the snafu is better, but I think that the looks of this, it just looks much more aggressive, much more. It looks like a bat out of hell, right? I mean, it looks like a demon of some sort, and I actually enjoy that very much. Well, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed it. This is an awesome knife, and you know, if you did enjoy it, then like and subscribe only if you think that I earned your subscription. And don't like and subscribe if you don't enjoy my content, right? Regardless, don't get notified. Nobody likes to get more emails. And until I see you at the next one, you know where to find me. Take care.